Jason Romano joins us as promised, former producer for Mike and Mike in the Morning. Had a chance to say hello to him last summer when we went down there for our annual tour of the ESPN facilities, which are phenomenal. And he is a Ravenna native. He's now the host of the Sports Spectrum podcast and creator of SportsSpectrum.com. He's also the author of Live to Forgive, a must-read for anyone out there. And we'll tell you why as Jason Romano joins us here on Big Board Sports, 104.5 The Team ESPN Radio. Jason, good morning.
Roger, good morning. How are you, my friend?
Good, my friend. Nice to catch up with you. I think we last spoke to you when you were finishing up and officially done with Mike and Mike and moving on to the next phase of your life.
That's right. Yeah, it was. I can't believe it was almost a year ago. It was February 10th of 2017 was my last day at ESPN, so it's been a crazy year.
Has it been a good year for you? Your next, if you will, chapter, and maybe that'll lead right into the Live to Forgive book that you have out.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. You know, for a long time I was a producer at ESPN, and one of the challenges they kind of offered me after I left ESPN was to host a podcast, and that's something that I hadn't really done in a long time. But I've been having a blast doing that, and we've had a great number of wonderful guests and, over 100,000 or so downloads of the podcast, and just building up a new sort of media brand has been a lot of fun. And then this book is just, it's crazy that I'm even telling you about a book that I wrote. I never thought I would write a book in my life. So it's been a whirlwind, that's for sure, but a lot of fun.
Well, the book is Live to Forgive, Moving Forward When Those We Love Hurt Us, is available now at Amazon, documents Jason's path to forgiving his alcoholic father. And I'll let you take it from there. Why is this a good read, and who would want to read this?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think everyone would want to read this because we've all struggled with forgiving someone that's hurt us in our life, whether it's just a family member or a coworker or a spouse or a girlfriend or a boyfriend or just a friend from school, somebody did something to us. We've all struggled with it. And I wrote this book specifically because my dad and I talked, and I said, listen, do we want to tell our story if it can help someone else? And he said yes. And so I wrote this book just to be able to help other people and let them know that they're not alone in their battle with forgiveness, because we all struggle with it. And there's a lot of sports in there because the relationship with my dad and I is centered around sports. It always has been, whether it has to do with good memories that I have of him or some of the bad ones. It was always around sports. And he's a giant sports fan. He's the reason I'm a big sports fan and working in sports. So I think it's a good read for, honestly, anyone. It doesn't matter if you're male, female, old, young. We all struggle with it. So hopefully it can encourage and help, those that read it.
Jason Romano with us here on Big Board Sports, 104.5 The Team, ESPN Radio from Ravenna. Of course, spent many years with ESPN and most notably with Mike and Mike in the Morning. Jason, you've gotten an outpouring of support from the current sports world. I mean, names that would resonate certainly with our listeners like Darryl Strawberry and Dwight Gooden, Chris Canty, who follows us actually here, Humpty and Canty, on 104.5 The Team. Anthony Beck, who we've had on the program here many times to break down college football with us. What was your reaction when you started to see all of these athletes, whom I know you know many of them, but their support for your book?
It was overwhelming, Chris, to be honest with you. I honestly didn't. I mean, I've had a wonderful career, and I've been very blessed to be able to meet and get to know some of the biggest athletes. I mean, that's and the biggest names. And that's really, sort of a benefit of working in sports. I know you guys have obviously met some big names and talked to a lot of big names on your show as well, and that's just one of the sort of cool aspects of working in this business. But to have them all kind of share about the book yesterday on social media was just crazy. It was a really neat thing to see, and I guess it kind of, I don't know, it affirms you that, you made an impact when you were working at the place you were working, or in the time that you met these people and got to talk to them. You made an impact, and that really felt good. But when you mentioned Darryl Strawberry, Darryl wrote the foreword for the book, and that's crazy because when I was a kid, that's the guy whose poster was on my wall, and that's the guy whose jersey that I wore and whose hat I wore and whose stats I kept in the 1980s. And for Darryl Strawberry to put his name on the front of my book, and write the foreword was just probably the coolest thing of this whole entire project, to be honest with you.
Jason, what is your reaction to the support that the book has earned from the sports warrior Tony Dungy and Bob Lee also have endorsed this book?
Yeah, we got a lot of, I mean, that's part of the process when you write a book is, you have to get sort of people to endorse it inside. And, I just kind of reached out to all my contacts and I asked who would be interested in getting people like Tony Dungy, who had a great impact on my life during just one trip to ESPN about 9 years ago. Certainly Bob Lee from ESPN, who I worked with for many years and Outside the Lines, and many of the sports figures that endorsed the book, Benjamin Watson, Brandon Marshall, guys like that were just people that I came across in my time at ESPN and got to know and talk to and build relationships with, and it was really neat to be a part of, and I'm grateful for them and that they would lend their name and support to my book. It just says a lot about them more than anything.
The book is available on Amazon. It is Live to Forgive. Jason, I'm sure you've come across this. I know I have in my life as well. Like, talking about our faith can be an uncomfortable subject for a lot of people.
Sure.
So I wonder, how did you always kind of break the ice with athletes you came across or coaches in order to make your podcast and your website now as successful as it's been?
I think part of it is just, we're people, right? We all sort of have our beliefs and our thoughts. And I think when you be open and transparent about that, people respect that. And, we're not going to all agree that we all believe the same thing or walk the same path or whatever. But I think if we're just open and honest in conversations about it, instead of being judgmental, it opens up the opportunity to have conversations, to have relationships, to be transparent, and to tell our stories. And that's kind of where this podcast came from. It's a faith podcast, but it's very much a sports podcast. If you listen to the interviews that we've had on with guys like Benjamin Watson and Bill Curry and others, you'll hear stories from their sports, stories from their life that have impacted them. And yes, faith is a part of that, but it's just really hearing people's life stories. And for some, faith is a big part of that. For others, it's not. But it's really just opening up an opportunity to be able to talk and share and be open about who they are.
How difficult was it, Jason, for you to write this book, given the painful memories that it certainly stirred up?
Yeah, Roger, it was very difficult, especially in the early part of the process, because, there's a chapter in the book called Boxes in the Attic. And as I sat down to sort of start writing this book and working with my co-author, Steve Copeland, it was almost therapeutic, literally sitting on a couch and trying to remember all these stories and realizing that they were very much like boxes in the attic, that you have all these memories and these things that you put in boxes when you store them away in an attic. And even though you haven't seen them for a long time or thought about them, you eventually have to confront them that they're still there. They're real boxes with real memories in an attic. And you have to pull them out and sometimes open them up and kind of confront them. And that's what happened with me. Writing this book was really opening up these sort of memories that I had from my past and opening them up and kind of confronting them and looking at them and saying, okay, this is what happened. Let's be as open about it as possible. And there was a lot of pain in that. There was a lot of pain, but all in all, when you write something like this, I think it's hard to write, but you feel better when you're done with it because you know that you're pouring your soul out. And the only purpose for this is not just to air my dirty laundry and my dad's dirty laundry out to everybody, but it's to help people, because a lot of people, when they go through things like this, kind of keep it to themselves and bottle it up. And, that's where bitterness and sort of anger kind of festers, and then it just kind of blows up. And when we're open about things like this and we listen to other people and hear their stories, it helps us in our healing process. So that's what I was hoping for in writing it, but it was not easy, that's for sure.
If you want all the details on the book, on the website, on the podcast, follow Jason on Twitter. He's a great follow, simply at Jason Romano, and you'll also find the other testimonials that athletes and coaches have given since reading this book as well, just released on Amazon yesterday. Jason, I understand, though, and we should point out, you and your father have a great relationship now. I don't know if it was in disrepair ever, but tell us a little bit, if you could, about the current relationship you and your dad have, and I guess if sports is still part of that.
Yeah, absolutely, Chris. So when I wrote the book, my relationship with my dad was never great. obviously the reason why I wrote the book. It is very good now, but it's still a little weird, and it's still in repair mode. I mean, that's 30 years of pain that you sort of go through. That's not easy to just. It's easy to forgive. Well, not easy to forgive, but it's easy for me to tell you that you forgive someone, but it doesn't always mean reconciliation is possible. But for him and I, it was a repair sort of state with the relationship for many years, and we're probably in the best place we've been right now. With our relationship, sports is still very much a part of that. In the back of the book, there's a picture of him and I at the BD Garden last year. We went and saw the Celtics play the Hornets, and it was our first game that we had gone to in 25 years. And it was just that moment when, and this was when we were still writing the book, I had just told him that I was leaving ESPN, and it was a pretty big moment. And we took a picture, and that was the only picture that is included inside the book. And it just kind of goes to show that, listen, it's not perfect. You know, our relationship may never be the father-son relationship that, you know, a lot of kids desire. You know, I'm in my early 40s now, so I have a family myself, but it is a relationship, and it's in a much better place than it was. And, you know, I'm just thankful to God for that. So,
well, Jason, it sounds like a must read. You've painted a great picture of why you would want to go out and buy this book, and is now available on Amazon. And it's called Live to Forgive, written by Jason Romano, former producer for Mike and Mike in the Morning, a local 518 Ravenna native here. And we appreciate you sharing, Jason. And thank you, and good luck with everything. We'll do this again, hopefully sooner than later.
Yeah, Roger, Chris, thanks for having me. And when I get back to Albany, let's do it in studio. It'll be great to hang out with you guys.
No doubt.
Love it. Thank you, Jason.